Good morning. Today, I'll be discussing the movie Midsommar and explaining what meanings I can. I've only seen it once and just recently. However, many of the impressions are still very strong upon me, and I would like to explain what I can and maybe color the commentary, which is obvious to a point, shall we say, anyway. This will be a spoilerific review. I will not spare anyone who wants to see it. Don't complain to me, my friends, if I ruin it for you. Midsommar is a parable. It concerns the relation of the modern people to religion, especially old time religion. Not, of course, faith. What do the cultists and all that jazz have faith in? Rather, it's about their rituals, their designs, and how everything comes together for the disaster of those who wander into it without knowing what to expect. You see, it begins with a certain character, Danny, losing her parents and sister in a suicide murder by her sister. I can't remember what the sister's name is, but almost all the characters' names are biblical allusions, except for Pell and all the other people in Halgar. It's fascinating how much Christian symbolism is layered into it, as well as how much pagan symbolism is layered over it. There's a certain amount of, what shall I say, sluttery on the part of the American characters. None of them can act in a moral fashion. None of them are their own people. They are rootless, free floating. They have no reason to live, no reason to do anything. The closest one is Josh, who has his paper to write, but he loses that to Christian, though it never goes anywhere. We have Pale, who does have a purpose, though it's sinister. Danny has no purpose. She isn't giving in to her, shall we say, womanly desires of family and marriage and kids and all that good stuff. Rather, she lives a life of drugs. She deals with her personality problems with psychoactive chemicals. Oh, by those I mean opiates, Ritalin, and whatever else she was taking at the time. She doesn't face her problems. Instead, she runs from them. And her problems come from her relationship. Christian is pretty much the biggest bitch in any room that he's in. He is so rootless, effete, and unmasculine that it takes others to finish copulation with his pagan, quote unquote, bride. Not that they're married in any real sense, it is merely ritual. It's, of course, whereas Danny is sort of like the modern woman, Christian is the modern Christian. Not real Christians, not like me and others who I interact with, who actually have faith, know where we're going, and know where we're going to go, which are two different things. We know what death is for us, the beginning. We know what lies beyond. Death is nothing to be feared for the Christian. I do not fear death. It is an old friend who takes me to a better place. But my purposes are clear, and that which I do is good, honorable, and just, while my friends may see me as I am. I also do many things in charities, and I've seen Christians heal and perform miracles and go out into the wilderness to preach the gospel. I've seen 1,000 different things, but this Christian has nothing like that. Christian is rootless. He doesn't know what good and evil are. He does not even know how to break off in a relationship. He does not even know how to screw. He is a failure. He has a cuck about him, if you will. He cucks and is cucked, though the metaphor is more of the family he could make is taken from him by the cult. 4 years he complains he's not having enough sex, and she doesn't seem to want a family, which is such a pity. We have Josh searching for knowledge and finding it, though it ends in his death. And then there's Mark, who's always sleeping, always missing, always pissing on ancestral trees, and he gets his in the end, and is turned into a jester doll for his troubles. Other characters also experience horrid death. That's neither here nor there. Their meanings are obscure to me, partially because they're from London and not America, like from the rest of the characters. One's named Simon, and I can't remember the other girl's name. Cute, though. But the lies that they're being told, the death flags, the ruination that's coming upon them, they can't see. They don't understand. They watch people literally kill themselves in front of their eyes, but they can't tell good from evil. Simon and his girlfriend could, and they nearly run for it. But it's too late. The trap was laid for them when they entered, not before and not after. So as things progress, Danny is brought in. Unlike Daniel of the Bible, she bows. She accepts. She is part of the world system, and she finds peace and joy in it. Even as murders happen all around her, her sorrow is burnt away, leaving only a certain sociopathic, monstrous joy. The joy is that she believes her sorrow and pain is gone forever, when in reality, we all know that if this is a metaphor about Christianity, we can extrapolate that she'll die and go to hell. She'll probably be sacrificed, as she saw the two elders were sacrificed, or perhaps something else happens sometime in the future. Who knows? But if it is a religion based on human sacrifice, May Queens don't tend to live long. So, if she's all the characters, of course, have accepted the world. Christian has accepted it the most. In fact, it makes a statement that Christianity is a whore in this location, in this movie. It gives up what things it could believe are right. He wants to have the relationship and be there for Danny, but in the end, he doesn't have the moral rectitude to actually follow through with anything he says. He is incompetent. He is weak, effete, as I've said before. He is the modern man. Though I should say he is a metaphor for the modern man. Many men would not go through what he willingly does if they knew better. Many men would rise and break their chains and flee. Though, then again, that wouldn't make for a good movie now, would it? So instead of, say, being virtuous, conquering those things set to pervert him, and take away everything that is good, even his life, he gives into it time and time again, and post orgasm, when the clarity hits, he runs and discovers horror after horror. His death is prescient. I don't really understand the metaphor of the bear yet. It doesn't really come out. They say it's for evil, but it surely has more meaning to it. The director is no fool. His burning is what makes various characters, Danny, happy, as she has become totally a part of the cult. Because she is totally a part of the cult, she is free from the sacrifices that could potentially be acted upon her, though certain sacrifices are performed in her name. As May Queen, of course. One can imagine that the people who go in have no wisdom to them, while the old wisdom, even though it's wrong and powerless before somebody who actually could fight against it, who serves a greater God, it consumes them, one and all. They have nothing to latch on to. There's wind blowing several times throughout the movie. You can see the faces of their forest god in the background in one location, obviously, but I saw faces after that just about everywhere. Things grow and move with the May Queen. Things become stranger and hmm, how do I want to say this? They become stranger, but also they become more normal for their cult like activity. At no point can anyone resist them. I'm trying to say that they have no reason to, that they have no ability to. If they did, it wouldn't be the same sort of movie. It wouldn't have the same meaning. Whereas, let's see here. I'm trying to move this along as I can. Hereditary. Let's talk about Hereditary for a second. Hereditary was a sort of triumphant movie. There are no Christians in it as before, but rather only hedonists, and people unable to do anything but wallow in their own misery. They are not conquerors, they are conquered. Therefore, Panem can win. There's nothing to stop them. They try to burn the book, but it ends up burning the person who burned it. They cut off their own heads, they float in the background, all sorts of horrible misery, despair, and so on and so forth. It's a triumph. It's a triumph over Christianity. It's saying that Christianity has lost. Though, of course, everyone knows that that's not quite how it works. Christianity doesn't really lose to that sort of thing. Instead, we're given domination over it. But that's not always the case for those who don't have Christianity. You see, I believe full heartedly that these movies can be understood from a Christian perspective. Whereas Hereditary is a triumph, Midsommar is also a triumph, but it drives the knife in obviously. It names the characters after biblical names. Christian is explicitly called Christian. He has the most moral choices to make. Danny only has one. Comes at the end of the movie. The rest of them are her just going along with the flow. When she makes her choice, she accepts the cult. Not that I'm saying she was innocent. Christian, however, makes many choices throughout. He tells Danny where they're going and invites her in. He takes the drink from the woman. He follows the crowd into uh, the wedding bower. Sorry, it's 2:15 where I am. He does this and that. He makes bad decisions And he never resists them. He always takes the easy way out. He does not fight for what he could believe is true. You see, he sometimes makes allusions to something better. Sometimes he, how do I want to put this? He talks about things as if he wants life and family and kids and all that jazz. But then he breaks away from the thought and never completes it. It's sad in a way, but it's acceptable. It's part of it. There are also mirrors throughout. They show up when people are breaking rules, mostly, or whether they're lying or acting according to their lower nature. When Christian is unable to break up with Danny and instead chooses to perpetuate the lie that he wants the relationship. When Danny is in denial of the relationship in the airplane. When Christian brings in Danny into the room where the four are studying. Pale, Joshua, Christian, and Mark. There's a mirror when Danny is tripping, and she sees her own face grotesquely put about, and she sees what I believe was her dead sister in the background. Joshua, this is the final mirror that I remember. Joshua, when he goes into the temple and is killed for taking pictures of the rune books, dies in front of a mirror where we see someone he believes to be Mark, but of course is not. There's a lot more to it, and a lot more I don't really understand. Like I said, I don't really quite get the bear. There's a lot of art I don't understand either, and why certain things happened. However, it's still a tension-filled movie. One of the best scenes is when the Mayflower Queen procession takes place. And you see everything in its drugged out glory, and the faces in the forest become very real. Also, the driving scene was excellent. There was tension throughout. And while I can say that I was never quite scared, except for the May Queen scene, which was fantastic, 10 out of 10. It wasn't really anything more than tension for me. What's more, my Christian lens, the things I understand about this world, tainted it in such a way that I saw it for the subversive piece of work it is. I knew what it was trying to say about Christianity, about how it's kind of a whore right now. Not the faith, the religion, not those who really follow it, but those who merely call themselves Christian. Christian is just a name, after all. Just a name. And then it faces something with drugs. Oh, that's the last thing I have to talk about, drugs. Everyone takes drugs. There's not a single character who resists drugs. Christian takes drugs. He smokes with his friends, presumably given to them by Pale. Danny takes certain psychoactive drugs, and she never sleeps without a drug at all. Uh, she takes Joshua's sleeping pills. She takes what I believe was Ritalin and a few other antipsychotics. She takes, I think I saw Ritalin. It had the N in it. I can't be sure. I just feel like that's the right thing. But hmm, there's a connection between the connection between the actions of the cult and the drugs that are being partaken. They smoke weed at home, but then they're not really impaired. They're not tripping. No one's tripping really before then. So then we go to actually, there's one more metaphor. There's one more metaphor. I want to talk about fire. Anyway, um, then we go into the forest. When they enter in, they're each given tea and drugs, shrooms, I believe it was. Then that's when Danny sees her distorted own face in the mirror, showing that she's a liar and that she is not what she needs to be. Then they go deeper in. Christian is often given different food from everyone else. His drink is different than the rest, many times, and he is often given drugs by others more than Joshua or Mark. Uh, it leads to his downfall because he never refuses. He personally never refuses to not take a drug. Instead, he accepts anything given to him. He has no moral backbone. I keep coming to that. It's important. So, he, um, they go through it. It leads to religious ecstasy. The forest comes alive with the drugs that the May Queen is given, and it seems to be directly connected to their power. They're given alcohol at every meal, and every celebration seems to have some sort of alcoholic component when there is no drugs. The only exception, of course, is uh, the fertility, the sham marriage between Christian and Ingmar. Though Christian was drugged to the gills at that point, and then afterwards he is drugged so that he cannot move. He is rendered powerless. Christian is powerless. It's fascinating. It's a sign of their rootlessness that their religion is drugs itself. It makes them spiritually not potent, nothing like that, but it just makes them more spiritually secure in themselves so that they can accept their lies better. Christian lies when he is on drugs. He tries to take what isn't his when he is on drugs. He drank with the rest at the party, and then he saw the people throw themselves off the bridge, the rock outcropping, excuse me. I don't think he was drugged as badly as he was at the end during then, but I'm certain that there's no point when he was sober. If he was sober, perhaps he would have thought differently, instead of being kind of psychopathic about everything, not having a connection to reality. Anyway, um, the last thing I want to talk about is fire. Fire shows up many times, and it is almost always uh, preceded. Proceeded? Death comes after fire. To start with, combustion engines produce smoke that kills carbon monoxide that kills the sister and the two parents, freeing Danny to go on her trip. Fire is given to the two who throw themselves off the rocky outcropping. Fire is put on the is given to the, let's see here. Fire burns the bodies of the elders, which are then distributed to the tree which Mark pisses on. I can't really connect Josh to fire right now, um, nor Simon, nor whatever her name was. Uh, yeah, I can't really think of how Josh is connected to fire. Then we have, um, yeah, Then we have the May Queen's thing. She is given a torch. She has torches on her carriage, and they carry torches before her wherever she goes in the carriage and during the ceremonies. This comes to Christian's death, where she dies seeing his own sexual infidelity. Then she's reborn within the cult. She is a part of them. She is a part of the family when they scream together in orgasmic fury. He and the rest who survived, or the innocents, or just named characters who are in the ritual place, which by the way changes colors at least once. At least once. After the people fall, I swear that thing is a different color. Maybe it's a different building and I'm mistaking the buildings, but it seems like she goes by and it's the right location for it. Anyway, changes it to orange. That one scene where she's crying and freaking out. And lastly, when he's tied up in the bear suit, he is burnt alive. And everything else, the rest of the people who were the people, other sacrifices and so on, were um, burnt as well, some alive. Uh, to me, its connection with death is obvious, but also it's a connection to hellfire. They're being sent to hell. The bear is being sent to hell because it's a representation of their sin. It's a scapegoat. The two men as well, but in a different fashion. Though their deaths are painful, despite the fact that they're given drugs one last time. Powerful drugs from the yew tree, which is potent and poisonous. They die painfully. It's assumed that Mark dies painfully. We hear him scream. But at the end of it, Danny smiles. She died earlier, but now she is reborn through their deaths, and she becomes a part of the cult for real. She made her choice, and she overcomes her sorrow at the death of Christianity, and becomes the May Queen of the cultists. Now, whether or not they went in that deep, I doubt, because I know. No, I'm wrong. They did know. They had to know. They put a lot of care into this movie. And while I understand that the director rewrote quite a bit of it to suit his tastes, it still existed as it is, you see. A horror. I believe that it is a sort of triumph, a brag, a boast. Christianity will fall before paganism, but not before whoring itself out and be burnt alive. And those who were a part of Christianity will become pagan. Of course, I don't believe that. Their gods are dead. They will die again if they have to. Their sacred groves were chopped down and burnt, and they can be chopped down and burnt again. But Christianity has to find its balls first. Christian never fights. Christian gives in. Christian is morally bankrupt, and so on and so forth. There is nothing else that needs to be said or understood about it other than Christian, while not the antagonist, is the one who causes Danny to finally break free and join the cults. Overall, I enjoyed this movie very much, and I view it as a deep well that I will pull from and enjoy watching again, as well as reading analysis videos and all that good stuff. I really hope that my rambling video helped. I know that rambles are a little bit difficult to get through, but I really do hope you enjoyed it. You all have a good one. This has been Midsommar Explained.